Evening. Welcome. Welcome to many familiar faces, some new faces. Special privilege for us to host tonight Project Inspire and Rabbi Chaim Samson, who is a maverick in this frontier. He's been working tirelessly for decades to really get this to the forefront. A vision, I believe, of your Rebbe, of Noach Weinberg. Zatzal, Zecher Tzadik V'Kodesh Levracha. We once had the privilege of having Rav Noach Weinberg, I remember at least once, if not twice, stand here at this podium and address this yeshiva with his fervor and passion and excitement. It was infectious. If you just met him once, you wanted to join his team. You wanted to join his team. His vision became your mission, because he made it real. He made us realize the gift that Hashem gave us, the beauty of what we have, and not just our ability to share it, but our responsibility to share it with others. He's the famous mashal, the famous parable of you see somebody drowning. Are you not going to jump in the water or call somebody to save the individual? So why is it any different if someone is drowning spiritually? They're totally lost. Don't we have an obligation to throw the person a lifeline? How do you do it? I'm not Rav Noach Weinberg. I don't have a Kiruv yeshiva. But that's why we're here tonight. To hear Rabbi Chaim Samson to tell us and to give us ideas of easy things that we can do that can really make an impact and can really impress something. And I feel there's a good partnership, because this yeshiva is a yeshiva for the working man, for adult men and women. We have women's programs, we have adult men's programs, we have a learning center. After you get inspired, what do? What's your next step? Your next step is to come and learn Torah, to keep yourself constantly plugged in. Because once you're inspired, inspiration is fleeting. It comes and it goes. It's like a flash of lightning. And without a course of a actual step and a way to keep it in motion, then the feeling and emotions we have don't necessarily carry forward. But if you want to keep it live, and that flame ablaze always, when you plug yourself into Torah learning, then you're alive. When you plug yourself into Shmiras HaMitzvahs centered around Torah, then you're a full power force. So this yeshiva has many things that go on here. I just want to bring it to attention, because sometimes people tell me, oh, I didn't know PTI has that. I didn't know Yeshiva Ner Baruch has that. So just to make you aware. And if you know somebody who can benefit, or if you like to take advantage of any one of the shiurim or chaburas that are out there that you were unaware of existed, we have 5 levels of learning here for men in Gemara weekly. We have 20 warm faculty, Hanhala members who live in the community. A series of Gedolim and great speakers who come and speak here periodically. There's customized chavrusa one-on-one learning you can get. Many people don't know, but we purchased a house and we added it to the campus of PTI, which is now a young professional home for those who want to live in a community that will continue their ability to grow in Torah mitzvahs. Most of them are from homes which are not Shomer Torah mitzvahs, and these people have made a change in their course of life and embraced Torah mitzvahs, and it's very difficult for them to keep that practice in an environment which is not supportive. When they come here, they can be supportive and continue the growth in Torah and learning. In addition, we give dating coaching, shidduch and matchmaking, and job connections for these young men. We have a vibrant young professional program with over 45 active young men in their 20s and 30s, good guys and single. Anyone wants to know good girls for shidduchim? These guys, there's a lot of good guys on the market right now. And if you like to host for Shabbos, for meals, for Yom Tiv, there's plenty of people looking. And Dr. Brodsky brought to my attention, we're the closest adult yeshiva to Manhattan, just 20 minutes away. So we have a diverse student body from Aish, from Or, Machon Shlomo, from all over. And I was just a Shabbos in Farakaway. I went to visit the Shar program, which really started developing a few years ago. It's incredible what they're doing. But there's nobody in North Jersey, nobody on this side of the Hudson that's doing what we're doing. So if you know anyone, it's for all ages, any stage and phase in your life. I just want to give a shout out and a special thank you to Dr. and Mrs. Brodsky for really taking lion's share to spearhead this, to put this together. And it's a kavod harav to get to introduce Yedidi Ahuvi, my good friend Rabbi Chaim Samson, who shares so many good ability and desires to impact our fellow brethren, brothers and sisters. And I feel very close to you. And I know we had a very warm connection to our Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Singer Zatzal. And Rabbi Singer always had the greatest feeling of affection and adornment for you and what you do. And he'd be very excited you're actually standing here tonight to share with us these words. Kavod harav, Rabbi Samson, the director of Project Inspire.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Bodenheim. It is an amazing shidduch, so to speak, between Project Inspire and PTI. There's no question about it. And it's moving to me to be standing here because of what you said, which is just that, we're in the shana of the Patira of Rabbi Singer. Was a giant. He was a giant in Midos, in Torah, but his love for Am Yisrael and for every individual, and his care, his simple Zechayim, his anivus, it just, you don't really need me if you're part of PTI. You just think, what would Rabbi Singer have done? Just do that, and I think I'm done. I'm done. So. Okay, so I have some what to say. If people have questions, please, you feel free. I probably will stop at various points to ask if you have any questions. Don't be shy. But to start with, I just wanted to sort of express that, also that it was mentioned to me that people want to know a little bit about dealing with their families and so forth. We'll try to cover that, but the main thing really in Kiruv is to get the basic mahalach of what Kiruv is about and how to do it for anyone, and then you can apply it to whoever it is. So we're going to cover that. A lot of that material that we're dealing with is based on Rav Noach Weinberg's material. He didn't put it together in a Kiruv training program, but it happens to fit like a glove. Bezos Hashem, you'll see. I think back to when it was mentioned to me that people want to know about family and being Makara family, I had to stop and think for a moment that if it wasn't for the fact that my brother ended up in Aish Torah and cared about me, I don't think I would be. Harbe shluchim l'makom. So you never know. Hashem maybe had different, but it was only the fact that my brother was in Aish Torah and he encouraged me to come and try and get him out that I ended up where I am today, So, that may be a very unusual approach. How do you makar of your brother? Sort of encourage him to try and get you out of yeshiva. Okay, that was a long time ago, but seemed to have done the trick. So if it wasn't for that, perhaps we wouldn't be standing here today. So yes, we have to care about our family, and we'll get into that a little bit. But the first things first is that, look, Kiruv is a very sort of exciting thing these days. A lot of interesting stories and great films and this and that. And it's kind of like, it's almost entertaining. It's like, wow, what a story. The first thing we understand, it's more than entertaining. It's more than a nice thing. It's really, a little bit of a chiyuv, to say the least. We're living in a generation where, Rahman al-Islam, 90% of our brothers and sisters are not keeping Torah mitzvahs. They're not connected to Torah in a significant way. Let's call it. That's a tragedy of incredible proportions. I believe the statistic today is that 3 out of 4 Jews who get married today in America marry out. That's terrible. It's a crisis. It's really a crisis. And unfortunately, it's not getting better, So we have to appreciate that, and this is how Project Inspire really started, with the idea that, you know what, there's a lot of wonderful Kiruv professionals doing wonderful jobs out there, and they really are amazing, right? But if you understand that there's approximately 5 million Jews, in America, and maybe it's changed since I started saying this 20 years ago, but that's what, there's about, 4.5 million who are not from, and you have a couple of thousand Kiruv professionals, maybe if you're lucky, then even if they get 100 people involved each, you're only left with 4,200,000 left, So it's clear, left to the Kiruv professionals, it's not going to do the job, right? So really, who's going to do the job? Right? Who's going to do the job? It has to be that every Yid understands. It's my obligation. I have a responsibility. They're out there. They're my brothers and sisters. I have to do something. So first of all, let's just understand a little bit. What is the obligation? We're dealing with halacha. We're doing Torah mitzvahs. What are the mitzvahs involved in Kiruv? Let's start from there, and then we'll move on to the technique. So I'll throw it out to you. Which mitzvahs are involved when you do Kiruv? What mitzvahs are you fulfilling? What mitzvahs obligate you? What would you say? Let's hear. It's amazing that after Rekham is always the first one, and it's a good one, So we all know from Pirkei Avos, it's Ohev Sabrius and Makarim the Torah, right? And that's the essence. The essence. Love people and bring them to Torah. Rav Chaim Volozhin explains, right, that why does it say Ohev Sabrius and Makarim the Torah put together? Why those two things put together? Because if you love someone, you want to give to them. If you really love them, you want to give them the best thing you could possibly give. What's the best thing you could possibly give them, says Rabbi Chaim Volozhin? That's Torah. There's nothing greater you could give someone than the gift of Torah, right? So if you love people, then you surely want to share Torah with them. So that's one. Yes, after Rekhamacha. Yeah, what else? Let's hear.
Hashavas Aveda.
Hashavas Aveda. Yes, Hashavas Aveda. That's quite an amazing one, right? That if you lose an object, you should return that object, right? It's a kal v'chomer if a person loses a limb, you should try to help a person loses their neshama, isn't connected to their Yiddishkeit, to relation with Kodesh Baruch. It's a kal v'chomer ben rosh kal v'chomer that you should try to return that to them, right? It's their rightful heritage. You should return it to them. Okay, good. What else? Okay, lo sam adam ri'echa. That Rabbi Bodenheim mentioned that to start with, but that's very clear that the Chofetz Chaim says he's pretty much. I think the Chofetz Chaim maybe got it from you. Well, once that if you wouldn't stand idly by, we understand that if someone's dying, God forbid, you don't stand by and walk on and say, well, I didn't kill him, I just let him die. You don't say that. That you can't quite rationalize that so easily, right? But if it's their neshama and their eternity, then what's it going to do with me? What's my responsibility? This is what Rav Noach always used to say: when it's blood, you feel it, and the body, the goof, feels it, and you're jolted. He used to say, if there were 10,000 people dying every day, believe you me, you'd do something about it. You wouldn't just sit there and say, what have I got to do with it? But if it's 90% of Klal Yisrael, I can sleep quite soundly at night, But it's a kal v'chomer. The Chofetz Chaim says it's a kal v'chomer. Yeah, Shloah Kodesh, right? So what else? That's a good one. Any others? Good. Also good. Ocheach tochiach. You should surely reprove. It sounds a little harsh, right? Go up and you come up and tell the guy you're a sinner. That's not the way to do it. If you read the Rambam in Hilchos Deis, you understand that you have to Tochacha means really it's a bein adam lechavero, that you care about someone and they're missing something that's essentially valuable to them, and your heart goes out and you speak to them in sensitive ways so you can help them get what there's rightfully theirs, to go into the right path because you care about them, right? This is all part of it. But tochacha is part of that. It's not tochacha is unfortunately if you do it the way that it sounds, which is like you come over to them and you tell them you're doing the wrong thing and this, then you'll fulfill the second part of the Passaic, which is the lo sisa alav chet. They'll end up doing a chet because you're embarrassing the guy, you're not being productive, and you didn't do a mitzvah, you did an avera. So you have to be very careful with that, but yes, certainly that's it, yes. Yes, you have the Re'eh Kamocha. We had that at the beginning, but it's such an important one. It's such an important one. We'll say it again, and we'll come back around to that as well. Yes. So, yes.
In order to Mamaka,
Yes.
you have to, you care about serving Hashem. You want Hashem to be served and His honor to be increased. So you want
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Kiddush Hashem. I mean, there's a couple of mitzvahs that come that I think you. But Kiddush Hashem. We say Kol ma shabara Hakadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam lo bara ela lechvodo. Right? It's for everything is for His honor. So, we're representing a Kadosh Baruch Hu in this world as a Jewish people. Where's the honor? Where's the honor of Hashem's honor when we're not fulfilling what we should be doing? Or as the Rambam says in Sefer Mitzvahs, Kiddush Hashem, lefarasem ha'amuna azos ha'mitis ba'olam, that you're supposed to get the truth of Judaism out there, right? That's right. So, right. The other one, and we'll move on from this, but the other one, which is sort of related to what you're saying, is there's a mitzvah of Avos Hashem. I thought that Bein Avon and Makom, right? That if you love a Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? As the Rambam says in Sefer Mitzvahs, that Abraham was Avraham Ohavi, was his beloved. Why? Because he went around Ahavehu ala brios. He made people beloved to Hashem. Right? That if you love something, you want to share it. Your parents come to the town, you want everybody to meet them. Your best friend comes, you got to meet my friend. If you have a recipe which is the best recipe, there's a certain music that you love, you got to hear this music. If you love a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're gonna want to share it. Says Rav Avram Shor, and if you don't, it reflects the opposite way. It reflects that you don't really love Hashem so much, because if you did, you'd share it. In fact, you don't means that you don't. So, although the Rambam seems to be saying that by sharing it, it's chetzonius ma'or paninius, that it does bring you to a place where you'll feel a greater sense of love of Hashem, but that by sharing it. But that's certainly part of the mitzvah of Avos Hashem. Okay, there are many more. We'll do with that. I just wanted to get a feel. Let's do two other points. Which is one is Arvus. Arvus, no mitzvah per se, it's a more basic in a certain way. Arvus is an understanding that we are all one, right? And therefore, if like the Rishonim explain, if you didn't make Kiddush, I made Kiddush already. I can make Kiddush for you. How can I make Kiddush for you? Why isn't it a bracha levatala? I already made Kiddush. No, because there's a part of me which is you. And if you didn't make Kiddush, then it means there's a part of me that didn't make Kiddush, and therefore I'm allowed, halachically, to make Kiddush again, right, even though I did it already, because there's a part of me which didn't make Kiddush, which is you. We have to understand what that means. That it really comes to the concept that the Klal Yisrael is one goof. We're all cells in the body of the Jewish people. We're one, right? And therefore, if 90% of Klal Yisrael isn't keeping Torah mitzvahs, there's a big part of me that's not keeping Torah mitzvahs. So from Mitzad Arvus, I have to, I'm obligated. I have to. It's me. It's not just you. It's me. It's us, right? But perhaps even more basic than that, and definitely related to this point. But I always say the most basic reason is, we accepted the Torah on Har Sinai. Ke'ish echad b'leiv echad. It's related to Arvus. But what was the idea? That we undertook, we were makabel to be a mamleches kohanim v'goy kadosh. We're going to be a priest, we're going to be a goy kadosh. We accepted it as an We accepted it as an we're going to breathe that moralizing and spiritualizing force in the whole world to bring the whole world to an awareness of Hashem. This is what we were kabel as an to be an Or Goyim, to be a light to the nations. How bright is that light shining if only 10% of us really are sort of aware of it? Yeah? How bright? The most basic, it's more basic than any mitzvah. It gets to the essence of what we are doing here as a people to do. We're here to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, to bring about this awareness in the whole world as an And if only 10% are doing, wow, oh boy, we're missing the point. So it's in order to achieve our purpose as a people, it's so basic. Of course, Klal Yisrael has to be keeping Torah mitzvahs. If we're not, where are we? Okay, so these are some of the ideas that just for us to realize. It's a beautiful thing when you hear the beautiful stories. It's a chiyuv. We have to try. We really have to realize that this is our responsibility. It's not just a nice thing for Kiruv professionals. It's for every single Jew. Every single Jew is obligated, and we have to try. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of how we go about doing this. So I like to share a little story. and you'll understand why after it. And this was a story that, and it's a little bit of a joke, that this was a story that happened. It was well known when I was in, Baruch Hashem, I was zocheh to spend 10 years in the old city of Yerushalayim at Aish Torah, learning and then teaching and so forth. And there was a common story that everybody knew, that if a follow thing happened to you, you knew exactly why. There's two guys, they're backpacking through, the old city. They just did Nepal, they're doing Israel, then they're going to go and do Europe, and they're passing through. And we, we're in the yeshiva, we would, meet these guys, and we were trained a little bit, so we would go up to these guys and we'd say, what are you doing? And they say, we just came from Nepal, we're doing it. So then they would ask you, what do you do? So you wouldn't say I'm in a yeshiva, they don't understand what this is. You say, I'm in a college of Jewish studies. What are you learning? You don't say Talmud, you say, I'm learning about Jewish wisdom, right? How to understand how to get more pleasure in life, we'll come back to that. How to understand relationships better, we'll come back to that. Well, how to understand what life is about. If you get the following reaction, one guy is fascinated. He's like, wow, he said, this is more the essential experience of Israel, more so than picking bananas on a kibbutz. This is really, could we come and see it? That's one reaction. The other guy, you see, he's beginning to sweat a little bit, right? He's looking at you, you see red, flashing light. He's saying, we'd love to come, but you know what, we were going to the Israel Museum, and he's grabbing the guy. He's like, so what's going on? So what was the joke? The joke is that the guy who's really excited, he's not Jewish, right? He looks as an interesting anthropological study of the Jewish people, how fascinating, but the Jewish guy, he's looking at you, and he's thinking inside, I know what you're trying to do, you're trying to pull me in, and it's Orthodox Judaism, and it's dangerous, right? And he sees himself with a black hat, and whatever, and get me out of here as soon as possible. I don't want to touch this with a barge pole, right? And to be honest, it was a joke, but it was almost always true, right? Because the Jewish guy is, why? Because the Jewish guy has got misconceptions about Judaism, right? He's scared silly, right? It's dangerous. He really palpably feels this is dangerous, right? So why does he feel that way? Emotions are a reflection of your attitudes and your thoughts and your understanding. So if you could understand, what is it that he's really thinking? What is it that why is he so scared, right, out of his wits, right? If we could understand what his misconceptions about Judaism are, right, and we can turn them around such that when you say Orthodox Judaism, he's going to say, oh, let me have it. That's the Kiruv process. And that's what we're going to discuss some of while tonight, Bezras Hashem. Yes?
I was just going to, in response to your question of what is he thinking, typically it's like, oh my gosh, if this is real, if this is emes, I have to change my whole life.
Okay, so what? So if it's
that's a scary thought in your mid-20s.
Okay, fine. We'll get into that, but that's definitely true.
That moment happened,
Yeah.
in your mid-20s.
But if you offered him $1 million, it would also change his life, right? And he would say, "Let me have it straight away," because he sees the benefit of that life change, right?
It's life-changing in the sense it means your whole social.
Exactly. Okay. We're going to get to that, but that's 100% correct. So what we're going to do now is go through some of there's basically 4 main misconceptions. Each misconception we need to understand. What is the misconception? We need to understand it for ourselves so that we are clear on it. Sometimes we're not so clear on it ourselves, as we'll see. Number 1. Number 2 is we need to know how to share the misconception with a person who's not religious, right? And number 3, you'll see that each misconception has a derech avoda in how to do kiruv that comes out, right? And I'm just saying from my experience of being in the kiruv field and as a so-called professional, this, in my opinion, is what, if you want to know how to do kiruv, this is what you need to understand, and rest builds on it. Of course, you can go more and more. We've got limited time here, but we'll do what we can. So the first misconception is that Judaism looks down, right? Yeah. This is the first one. That Judaism looks down on non-religious Jews, right? Meaning, it's not a misconception that Orthodox Jews can look down on non-religious. That could be actually kind of true. It's not actually a misconception, unfortunately. But the misconception is that Judaism validates that's okay, That's, Orthodox Judaism looks at me as being a lesser person, right? So if I perceived it that way, that you look at me as being less than you, that you don't really accept me, that I'm, so, what do I want to have to do with you, right? Like, it's not, it's a person won't even go into the door in the first place. So how do we understand this misconception? This is something you can say to a person who's not from, and you say like this. It says in the Talmud, it asks a question in Sanhedrin. It says, some person puts a gun to your head and says, we'll kill you, or you kill this innocent person, right? Can you kill the innocent person to save your life? What do you say? No. Why not?
Who's to say his blood is redder than
Right. Says the Gemara that you don't know whose blood is redder. Right. So what does that mean? So you understand, you don't really, what does that mean is, you don't know who the better person is really in God, in the eyes of Kadosh Baruch Hu. You don't know. We don't judge. Oh, Tadanis Chaver, you don't know. Right. So we'll come. So let's just take this a little bit one step further. Let's say the person who puts the gun to the head of Rav Eliashiv, if he was alive, really, and says, we'll kill you. Or you see this good-for-nothing layabout, he never did a day's work, he pickpockets people, you don't want to know how he treats his wife. We go to Rav Eliashiv, we're going to kill you unless you kill for this good-for-nothing layabout. What's the halacha? Can Rav Eliashiv kill? What do you say? No, why not? Halakha is halakha. And not only the halakha is halakha, the svara is the same svara, it's the same rationale. That you don't know who the better person is in the eyes of the Ribono Shel Olam. Now, to me, I say this is a proof of God, of Torah in and of itself, that the Torah should say such a thing, right? The broad-mindedness of it. But you have to understand what that means. Yeah, why not? Why can't you say that the God will adore is a greater person? Because you don't know, as we said before, you don't know this person, you know his makeup, you know his chemical makeup, you don't know his genetic makeup, you don't know what good deeds he's done, which on his level might for him outweigh all of yours because of some from Sarah Africa. We don't know, that's not our realm, right? Only Kadosh Baruch Hu judges people. We're not in that realm, only the Almighty judges people, and therefore, yeah, if you see a religious person, right, who's looking down on non-religious Jews, yeah, he may look religious, he's not quite as religious as he looks, because he's doing something which goes against the essence of the Torah. Now, this is really crucial, because if people don't feel accepted, listen, if I would say to you, listen guys, come, I want to invite you to my house, and if you're going to come to my house, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that look down on you and think you're bad. You'll say, you know what, I'd love to come, Rabbi Sampson, but I have an appointment at the Israel Museum. I can't make it. I'd love to come, but I can't, because we can't stand that feeling. It's a horrible feeling not to be accepted. Right? So therefore, we have to appreciate that when you're looking, every human being is made b'tselem Elokim. Ezehu Chacham, who is a wise man, Halomen Mikol Adam. And you can say what we've just said to a person who's not religious and say, you know what? I sincerely believe you could be a better person in the eyes of the Almighty than me. Yeah. Ezehu Chacham, Halomen. There's a lot I have to learn from you. You're made in the image of God with infinite potential. What an honor to know you. And the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, not only should you say it, but you should even believe it. Right? It's not enough to say it. You should believe it, right? That every human being is remarkable. So much that I can learn. Right? Yes, you had a question.
It's not a challenge on that, but isn't there something in the Shulchan Aruch about someone who's not Shabbat Shabbos, they don't count on them? Anything like that?
I mean, that's a halakhic question. First of all, that's not Rav Moshe. I mean, we can get into that. It is a bit of a, but Rav Moshe doesn't paskin that way. Rav Moshe says if you're mispalal, and it's not really relevant here. But even if the guy is not religious, tinik shenishba, you don't know. Right. You know who's a better person in God. It still applies. Yeah. So halachas are halachas. What you can do, what you can't do, and so forth. That those you ask your
right.
local Jewish, Orthodox rabbi, but it's not. It doesn't affect this understanding.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the first thing. So we have to understand that, right? Now, this is just the sur meirah. The sur meirah is don't be judgmental. It's the key of all Kiruv. Don't be judgmental. As soon as they feel you're being judgmental, they're out to the Israel Museum, right? They're out, right? So that's the A, right? And we have to work on ourselves. Very easy to be judgmental, right? So what? But that's just the sumera. That's just what you shouldn't do. If what you shouldn't do is be judgmental, what is it that you think that you should do?
Be accepting.
Be accepting. Okay, that's right. That's right. Accepting. Don't be judgmental. Be accepting. They're sort of two sides of the same coin. What else? What else could you do? If he's going to be so turned off, if you was judgmental, what do you think would make him feel more closer? Build him up, right? Like what?
Like the godless of a person, the godless of a Jew. So like Rabbi Singer always said, even if he's laying in the gutter, in his vomit or whatever, he's Tzelem Elokim.
Right. That's you. You have to appreciate that about him.
But
But how do you build him up? You said build him up. How am I going to build him up?
You tell him that I see the potential. I see, we can't judge someone because we don't know where and everyone has the ability. But Moshe Rabbeinu, I mean, it's all tapped in there. It's all in there. Bishvili never has a
Yeah.
So like for him too.
Yeah. So just be careful on that point. Just be careful that if you say, "Listen, I think you have tremendous potential. You could be the most religious person in the world," they'll say, "Thanks very much," because that's you're not respecting where he's at. So if you're building up, no, it is true. I agree with the point. Build him up. The question is, how do we build someone up? Yes.
Basically, I think, personally speaking, just valuing their life experience.
Beautiful.
Like
Okay.
in the sense of not discounting it, like that they wasted their life.
So what do you have to do to someone to value? How do you get to their life experience?
An irreligious doctor.
Okay.
As an example, it's incredible what you do. You probably don't even realize that you're doing one of the mitzvahs, saving people's lives.
Right.
Really?
Okay.
I went to medical
Okay.
school to make money.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's
I mean,
good.
just whatever it is, in any profession, trying to see the value and maybe
Okay.
possibly putting it.
But in order to do what you're saying,
Yeah.
get to know them. Okay, that's right. Get to know, be interested in them, right? First thing is what do you have to do to be interested in someone? Ask them about them. Listen. You got to listen. Meaning that don't judge them. Accept them, right? Listen to them, right? Listen to people. This is my last gun story for the night. But Rav Noach used to tell this gun story that there's a guy comes up to another guy with a gun, and he says, "I've been trying to get someone to listen to me my whole life. You're going to listen to me for the next hour, whether you like it or not," right? Now it's a joke, but it's brought in Mr. Svarim, this story, and it's not such a joke because we relate to it, especially in this generation where everybody is so fast paced, and you've got these and the phone, and people can't sit still as the ADD generation. If you listen to someone, if you really listen to someone, and you care about them, you show interest in them, you want to know what their life is about, wow, that's going to make an impression, right? Again, sincere, right? Authentic, right? Not a joke, right? This is the essence. You see, if we're trying to get someone to become frum, I'm going to get him frum. How do I get him frum? You're not relating to the guy, right? You want to get him somewhere. Now, I wasn't going to say this, but I will say it now because I'll just tell you. People talk about having an agenda, right? You shouldn't have an agenda, right? The reality is, and if someone comes with agendas, it does feel good. But the reality is, there is nothing wrong with having an agenda, right? In fact, if you don't have an agenda with your children that you want them to be healthy, to be happy, to be successful, to get a job, to etc., it means you don't care. If you don't have agenda, then you don't care. So what's the issue that people say that, well, there seems to be something about an agenda which is offensive, right? So the answer is like this. I'll give you this story. An old friend of mine from yeshiva, I actually spoke to him yesterday when I was like a long time ago, right? I was sick that day. Nothing terrible, but I was sick. And I figured by lunchtime, all my friends are going to come and see where was Chaim. He didn't come to shir, And guess what? No one came. So I was like, okay, So evening comes by, and one guy comes by, my dear friend Ephraim. He comes by, and he says. He spent an hour with me, and it was so nice. I felt so good. He really made me feel good and everything. And then he said to me, he said, "No problem, Chaim, because I'm going to get a lot of reward in the world to come for this." And my face dropped. Now, why did my face drop? Because I want to tell you something first of all. He didn't really mean it. You know, he didn't mean that was the only thing. I'm just telling you, he didn't mean it. But the way it came across, was that you're using me for your world to come, right? You mean you don't really care about me. You just want to get world to come. So when somebody has an agenda, what's wrong with it if the agenda isn't about you? So a missionary often will have an agenda to get someone to become whatever it is. They don't really care about you. They want to get their brownie points. They want to get people to do this no matter what. That's their mission in life. It's not because I care about you. It's because I'm trying to get you somewhere and then I get the reward in the world to come or whatever it is I think I'm going to get. When you are using someone, so to speak, because you want to get them, I've got to get these people from no matter, they'll feel it from you, right? It's got to come from an authentic place of real caring. If he would have said to me, Chaim, it's my pleasure. It's such a pleasure to come and see you. I would have felt so good. Because when your pleasure is in the act of caring and in the person, there's nothing like that. That's a compliment, right? But if it's they're using, so that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with agenda. You want to help people. You want to do that. Just make sure the agenda is coming from it's with integrity and authenticity and coming from a real place of care. Okay. So in terms of this, we said the Sumeira, the Asay Tov is listen to people, right? Empathize, feel them, right? Even more so, ask them, this is what coming back to what you said, which is, how can I build them up? What can I do for them, right? When I first came to this country, I think you probably tell I'm not from Brooklyn, when I first came to America, and I was working for Aish on the Upper West Side, and I remember I met a lot of people who got involved, and I would ask them, how did you get involved? And a lot of them would tell me, to his great credit, they said, well, I met this guy, his name is Steve Eisenberg, and he set me up for Shabbos lunch, okay? Then I met another guy, said, well, I met another person, they said, oh, I met this guy, Steve Eisenberg, and he sent me to such and such a class. And and it kept happening. So I went over to Steve, I don't know if anybody knows him, he's one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim of the generation, really, too. And I said, Steve, how do you do it? How come there's so many people? So he told me the following answer, which I've held onto since then. Which is, he said, you know what, I look at myself as a walking Walmart, right? I live on the Upper West Side. On the Upper West Side, there's basically three things that people mainly want. They want a shidduch, they want an apartment, and what's the third thing? A job, right? Yeah, so I know all the contacts. I've got all the contacts at my disposal. Somebody tells you this, okay, go to this person, go to this one. Whatever it is that they need and they want, I look at it as this is what I'm about. I'm going to try and help people as much as I can, right? That's what I do, right? And that is an incredible recipe how to be makar of people. Because when you care about people that way, it's so touching, it's so moving. And I'm going to say this point, I'm taking everything out of order, but because I was told to talk about family. But I want to tell you, one of the things, I, Baruch Hashem, was zocha not to get my brother out of well, maybe for a little bit. But we both ended up in Yerushalayim for 10 years or whatever it was, And we used to come back, there's just the two of us, and we used to, come back to my parents. They weren't thrilled at the time, about the two sons giving up medical school and university to go to this yeshiva that they didn't know what it was exactly. But, time went by, and what did we do? We really, really laid it on thick, kibbud of the aim. We really laid it on thick, right? And we meant it. We appreciated it. Baruch Hashem, I was zocha aleim shalom to have incredible parents. And we had tremendous appreciation for them. And we would do whatever. We'd come back and we'd help them with things and buy things and do whatever we can. Meanwhile, their friends, who didn't have from kids, who were around, they don't come to visit us, they don't do this. After a while, excuse me, it got through. That, wow, look what happened to Rena and Stanley's children, that look how well they came out. Despite they ended up in a cult or whatever it was, right? But it got through. I'm saying it got through, and really, the place to start always is this area of Kiruv training, which is don't judge, don't come across judgmental, come across the loving, caring. How can I help? And if you can do that, right, it opens up doors, because that's what people out there appreciate. They appreciate Beit HaMechuberet. That's what does it mean to be a good person? A person who cares. A person, that's it. It's not a person, how you daven, or what you sit or whatever. It's not. This is what they appreciate. It means a good person. So if you can lay that on thick, that's half the battle. It's half the battle. We're going to come back to it anyway. So this is the first, right? The first is that, okay, so now, Lamaisa, right? Lamaisa. By becoming close friends with people, which is really what you're trying to do, and what you will do if you care about them, yeah? They will be open to who you are and what you represent. So let's just ask the question, practical. How do we do this, right? How do you develop a relationship with people? How do you do it? What's the mahalach? How do you, what are things that will help you develop a relationship with someone you know who's not from? How do you do it, right? And we really have to sort of spell it out, because we don't necessarily join the dots, So I'm asking you, somebody who's not from, what do you do based on this aspect of doing Kiruv?
Invite them for Shabbos too.
Okay, right? Invite them for a Shabbos meal, right? If you invite them for a Shabbos meal, now there are a lot of halachic questions around that, which there are a plethora of different poskim, right? Most Kiruv organizations, I'm just saying it for the record, but you ask your local rabbi, most say that if you invite someone and you give them a place to stay, based on Rav Shlomo Zalman's heta, okay, so you took off the lifnei iver, and that's there are many. There's much more mekel, and there's much more machmir, So, but you ask your local rav. But so let's say you invite them, right? So invite them. So that's because they'll come and it's an active relationship. We're going to come back to inviting for Shabbos later in a different section. But yes, invite them for Shabbos is a nice way to. What else? Okay, that's one. What else?
Show genuine interest in them.
Okay, how are you going to do that?
By really trying to find out,
Okay, like we've said all the before, right? So you got to.
What did
Okay.
he say in here?
Yes.
What did he say?
So have genuine interest in them, as we had said before, right? Yeah.
When somebody asks, can you repeat the question?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Too often is to relate to somebody, you can share your own journey, how your own not insecurities, but where you've been and the things that you've gained, along the way, the people that have made an impact in you, and how, so that they start to know you just as much as you.
Okay, that's very
know
nice.
them.
Right. So sharing who you are about yourself. Now, again, there's two parts to that. One is sharing about yourself because you want to develop a relationship. And the part B is there is a benefit, which we'll get to, of sharing yourself and your story and how it, when I tell people I went to get my brother out of yeshiva when I was 17, people go, oh, wow, that's interesting. But at this stage, we're talking really about how to care about someone. So you have to know when you can add these things that will help them appreciate Judaism. But it's true. That's part of a developing relationship. It's not you're listening only to them, but you're also sharing yourself. In Hakinam, yes.
Be nice and be helpful.
Be nice and be helpful, right? Be nice and be helpful. Yes, of course, yes.
This is almost, I think, like a precursor maybe to a Shabbos invitation, but be just like asking a friend to have lunch with you.
I love that. Right now, because
Let me just
yes, please.
A little more is just that oftentimes they're not familiar with kosher, or their concept of it is maybe Hebrew National hot dogs or something like that. So you take them to a nice restaurant or whatever, and they're their eyes suddenly open, like, wow, this is kosher.
Right.
It's like even
Right. So you're
kosher
educating
wine.
them a little bit. Yeah.
I thought it was just Manischewitz, and you show them like this wonderful
Beautiful,
wine. So,
beautiful.
Their minds start to open.
Yes.
Like, I didn't realize this is what keeping kosher is.
Right. So that what I like about this idea of invite them go out for a meal with them, or invite them on a Tuesday evening, or meaning it's not Shabbos has its own power, and we'll get to that. And but we're focusing now on developing the relationship, right? So if you always think about Shabbos, yeah, I'll get them for Shabbos, but maybe they can come. You're just showing that you care about them. Go out for a cup of coffee with them, right? Or more so, we all have people that we know who are not from Yeah, we all do. In fact, I remember teaching many years ago Kiruv training in 5 towns, and there was a there was a lady there who, you know, it was a 2-part Kiruv training, and the lady put up her hand towards the end of my first class, and she said, "Rabbi, I'm telling you, you've come to the wrong crowd. We get up in the morning, we see religious people. I take my children to school, there's just religious people. I go to the stores, there's just religious people. We don't know non-religious people, we don't." So I rolled up my sleeves and I said, let me tell you about a guy that I met from Williamsburg, right? Who didn't know anybody, heard the Kiruv training, was so into it. I've got to reach out, but I don't know anybody. I said, Rabbi Yoel, yeah, just daven, right? And Hashem will give you. So a couple of months later, he emails me and he sends me an email. He was a computer guy. He was on a chat thing with questions people were asking. Someone asked him, you know, he showed me. I was adopted by my parents, but I always knew I was Jewish, and I have a question of how do you pray as a Jewish person, right? You know, I'm 60 years old right now, right? So this guy, so Rabbi Yoel says, it's a pleasure. I'm happy to ask you to help you with this, and then he sends me the next email. I'm saying Modeh in the morning and the Shema at night. What do I do next? I mean, it was unbelievable. So I said to this lady, and by the way, that guy became, I don't know exactly where on the spectrum, but he started really keeping mitzvahs because of this guy, Rabbi Yoel Rubin, who at the time, and probably now, doesn't speak English that great, but he did a great job. He did a great job. So you don't have to speak English that great with people, and you can still be Makar. Anyway, so I said to this lady, if he can do it, you can do it. And I said to her, if I offered you $1 million, like it's a Noach line, if I offered you $1 million for every non-Jewish person that you reached out this week, do you think you'd come back with a few? So anyway, next week she came back and she said, Rabbi Samson, I reached out to this one, I reached out to this one, I reached out to that one. But the point of the story is that we all know people. We do. We just sort of like forget that we know them, right? Or they're not on our radar. So the first thing we have to do is think, who do I know? Who should I be reaching out to? How do I, and that's number one. Number two is, give them a phone call. Right? You know, the fact you can be very nice to them when you meet them, but you might not meet them again for the you'll listen and you'll validate and you'll help them, but I'm just not going to see them for the next 20 years. So it's not really a shayach, you know. So the first thing you've got to do is get in touch with them. To develop a relationship, you have to be in touch with them. If you're not in touch with them, you're not going to have any relationship. So the first thing is call them, email them, be in touch. Now, don't be a nudnik, right? But, you know, I know someone, I think he was put out recently, Yochi Herzog, right? He's from Kedem, yeah. He came to a Project Inspired thing like 15 years ago, and since then he was decided. On Fridays, I'm going to call my non-religious friends and people that I know and wish them a good Shabbos. That's what he does, right? Yeah, and he done it. Some of these people became religious, you know. And we'll come into the not all or nothing. I'm going to come back to this story and into the not all or nothing component to this. But I'm just saying, wish people to phone them, give them a phone call, and wish them a good Shabbos with no agenda, right? This is the no agenda part of what we're saying. Care because you care, right? You know, it says, "Oev is a brias from Makavan la Torah." Right? So we said, Rav Chaim Volozhin said that that's the greatest thing that you can give, right? If you love someone. But Rav Asher Weiss told me one time that it said, oh, it's a brius, yeah? Umakav, doesn't say kadei lekarvam. It doesn't say love people so that you can bring. That's the agenda point. You're going to love people whether they come closer or not. You're going to love them. Of course you want them to come closer, but if your love is conditional on that they're going to come closer, so then it's not going to work, right? You know, Yaakov Weinberg explained that you need, if you want to be makar of people to Torah, you have to have the Ovos Abrius first, right? You can't. That's what I can't go straight to makar of people to Torah. It's the essence is ahavta recha kamocha zeh klal gadol b'Torah. This is the essence of it. We have to do that. So okay. So look, go out for a cup of, give them a sincere compliment, right? find out how they're doing and listen. You've got the basic idea here, so this is it. But you've got to be in touch with people. You have to know who those people are, and you have to be in touch, and you can invite them and try to develop a connection with them, which doesn't necessarily involve frumkeit per se, right? Now, it can be helpful if they'll come for a Shabbos. That's very nice, but sometimes they're not ready for that, right? So, okay, you get together and get to know them, you be friendly with them, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's number one. Now, I want to say that the biggest corollary idea here, what holds us back from Kiruv, the biggest block is the following: is that, I don't want to, I know this now from people, but to be honest, I don't want to invade his space. I want to be respectful, right? I don't want to go over any boundaries, and therefore, I'm going to stay where I am, right? And not get involved, right? Because now really what's going on here is you're being a little bit too British, forgive me for saying, you've got to become a little bit more American. Maybe that's why I came to America, right? So you've got to be able to go across the boundaries a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And you have to be, so, as we would know, and we've a corollary idea, what we said before, is God forbid if someone was about to throw themselves off, the Empire State Building, and you were there, and you could stop them. You wouldn't say, "Well, different strokes for different folks. I don't want to invade his privacy." You tackle him down to the ground. You do whatever you can. Or if, let's say, it was your a family member that's hurting and needs help. You wouldn't say, "Well, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to." If they hurt and it's your family and they need your help, you better help, right? You can do something. So we have to understand with non-from people, they are our family, and yes, this is a tzalos nefashos. So tackle him down to the ground, so to speak. Doesn't mean tackle him down. What it means is take action, do something, don't let it go, right? Do something. So we're constantly meeting people. We're constantly, and we don't realize how much we're meeting people. Yeah, we meet this person. He's Jewish, and you met him here, and you met there, and you say hi, and you say bye. You've got to realize, Rav David Orlovsky tells a story of a guy. He's, end of his life, and he's going on the up escalator, had a nice frum life, and as he's going up, he sees his non-frum neighbor going on the down escalator. I don't know if it exactly happens that way based on some of the things we already said, but okay, for the said story. So he's waving at him. He's trying to, and he's trying to not get the eye contact. He was sort of trying to avoid it. Finally, he says, "Hi, how you doing?" He goes, "Actually, not so well. How you doing?" "Oh, great." He says, "Did you know about this? Up escalator, down escalator. Did you know about this?" So he says, "Well, as a matter, I did." He says, "Well, I was your neighbor. I used to come and mow your lawn. If you needed a favor, I'd come and do it for you. How come you didn't say anything?" You've got to say something. We have to say something. My dear friend, Rav Daniel Curran, who is a Muncie, and he tells the story of how he was never involved in Kiruv, but he was working at Rabbi Rudinsky's yeshiva, and in the summer the Hasidim come in, and they take over the campus, and it was a hot day, and they didn't have any they didn't have any air conditioners on, so they needed a guy. So they asked Rav Daniel, and he said, "Okay, yeah, there's a guy down here." They could hear the party going on, whatever. He went over to them and he said, "Listen, you can try to, hint to whatever it is, however you do it." As he's asking, he hears the one guy saying, "Avi, hem rotzim shanachnu madlikin ez hamaskan." They want us to put on he's Israeli Hiloni, So the next thing is, you can't do it. No, I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care. I'm going to do it. I'm not religious. No. So okay, but at that point he realized he has a neighbor who's a non-from Jew. So he said, he knew he's going to do something. He's going to do something. So he said he would walk up the path and his heart would start beating, and then he would turn around and go hard. And the mamash is the mamash tzaddik of a guy. He would cry at night because he wanted to do something. He's not from person. I got to do something. But he couldn't do it. So he would cry. His wife said to him finally, "Listen, Reb Daniel, either do it or don't. I can't take the crying." So finally he went up and he knocked on the door. He heard a noise. He thought they were coming with a machine gun, but you know what? It wasn't a machine gun. They just just opened the door. It was a little cranky. So they, came to it, and he said, my name's Daniel Curran, and I live here, and it's a pleasure, and you're my neighbor. I'd like to get to know. Anyway, Baruch Hashem, one thing led to another. He put a mezuzah on their door. He taught their son bar mitzvah lessons, and so forth, and things grew a lot. But he said that he was afraid of doing it, right? But he overcame his fear, right? Because he realized he has to do it. He said from then onwards, right now, once he overcame his fear, right, the care kicked in, and he became a Kiruv maniac, right? And he is, right? He said, ladies and gentlemen, you overcome your fear of invading people's spaces, you too will become a Kiruv maniac, right? We just have to overcome it. Not what, he's not going to write a letter back to your parents. I met your son, I met your daughter, and you know what? He was thoroughly obnoxious. They're not going to do that. Right? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's not. It's going to be okay. We've got to prepare to extend ourselves. You might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's worth it, right? But we're all talking about being. The most important thing is that when you meet new people, right, you should speak to them, do everything that we've been saying, and at a certain point say, I'd love to stay in touch, because as soon as they leave, they're gone, right? So then you say, could I'd love to give you my phone number, because if you say, how do you do that, then you need to get their phone number to send your phone number. So that's how you get there. Because if you just give them your phone number, then they'll never call you. But if you say, let me text you my phone number, then you've got their phone number. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so this is it. So we would talk. So now we're on number two. Number two. The second misconception is that non-religious Jews think that if I become religious, it's going to take away all my pleasure and enjoyment of life away. I'm going to be shackled, right, by mitzvahs, right? I can't go to the restaurants, and I can't have the vacations and the relationships and the fun of every single moment of the day as another halakha that I have to do. What kind of a life is that, right? It takes away all my freedom. It's terrible, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing we have to realize, is that he is wrong, right? We have to realize that he's wrong, right? Because sometimes we think, wouldn't it be kind of nice, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have to do all the, wouldn't that be we have to realize that, and this is crucial for us, just in our own avodas Hashem, and certainly in our Kiruv, you have to realize, right, that what is Torah about, right? And this is something you can say to him, right? That, if you can say to him or her, what is it that you think that the Torah wants from us? What do you think that Orthodox Judaism or religious people think that God wants from them? What do you think, right? So they might say, I think God wants you to keep his commandments, to be good, to pray to him, to believe in him, and those are, and you always say those are great ideas, right? You validate, right? Don't invalidate. Say no, those are stupid ideas, right? Don't try that, right? So they say, oh, those are great ideas. But let me share with you a way that Judaism looks at it. The relationship of God to us is like a parent to a child. We call God Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, Avinu Havarachaman. Right? So we are like Hashem's children, right? So if that's true, if you can understand what is it that parents, bottom line, want for their children, right? If you can understand what that is, that will give us an insight into what is it that God wants for us. Does that make sense? And you'll say, does that make sense? And they'll say, yeah, that makes sense. So you ask them, if they're a parent, you say, what is it you want for your children? If they're a younger person, you'll say, what is it your parents want for you, right? So what is it? So what is it that parents want for their children? What do you say? What's that? To be happy, right? To be happy. The bottom line, you got to it straight away. The bottom, of course, we want our children to be healthy and to listen to us and to settle down and so forth. But the bottom line is we want them all of these things so that they can have happy, fulfilled lives, right? When a little baby starts screaming and you start, and you can't stop that little baby there's nothing that's more painful to a parent than that. But the little baby starts smiling and giggling and everything. Oh, that's my baby. That'll just tickle pink, right? So, but as a child grows in life, you want deeper pleasures, right? You want them to have fuller pleasures. So they'll start playing sports, and they'll start playing, but you don't want them to play sports for the rest of their life. You want them to have settled down. You want as a parent, your children to have all the fullness of pleasure in life. That is what the Almighty wants for us. That's what Judaism says. He wants us to have tremendous pleasure in life. And it's not that we suffer in this world for the next. That's the other religion. We don't believe in that. We believe that Hashem gave us a Torah so that we can get the most out of life in this world, right? And we'll get even more in what's to come. That's true, right? But that's it. And that's what it is. The Torah is Torat Chayim. It's the instruction manual for living, right? And it's the instructions from the creator of the universe how to get the most out of life. And it makes sense, because people go into life and they rush into life and they want to get, have successful marriages and bring up their children and have meaning and so forth. And what happens? You do it on the job, right? And you have 50% divorce rate and children don't disassociate from the parents. You know what? You wouldn't go, if you were building a bridge, let's say a person starts building a bridge, say, wow, I didn't know you were a mechanic, you were an engineer, right? So you said, no, I'm just giving it a shot, to say no. Or if a person has does a open heart surgery, so I didn't know you were a doctor, no, I'm just giving it a stab, oh, I didn't, your son asked you for car keys, I didn't know you passed the driving test, no, I'm just giving it a twirl, don't try this at home. It's dangerous, right? So what's more complicated? You're to drive a car or open heart surgery or to live a life of the complexity of marriage and everything that goes into it. You've got to learn. You have to understand. Learn first. We have a Torah. That's what is the Torah? The Torah is a Torat Chayim, instruction manual for living from the creator of the universe, how to get the most pleasure out of life. This is something you can explain to him, but we have to realize that for ourselves, that this is the case. And we have to understand that the Torah is the way to get the most pleasure out of life, and that's really what the Mesilas. We have to understand for ourselves. Mesilas Yesharim says, what's Ma'chova Saba'olamo? What are we in this world to do? The Hisaneg al Hashem, to take pleasure in the matter. Why? It's the greatest pleasure, the most satisfying thing of all satisfactions. That's it. Love of God, right? Like the Sefer Chinuch said, all other pleasures are like nothing. Ka'ain ka'efes v'katohu, compared to love of God. That's what the Torah is all about. So we can have that spiritual relationship. We can have pleasure in this world, and thereby we'll get it in the next world. That's what it is. That we have to understand that for ourselves, that we're not suffering in this world. We have to realize that. So this is something that you can share with him or her, right? That the Torah is about, that the Almighty doesn't need us. He's our Father in heaven. He's an infinite being. He's lacking nothing, right? As the Navi says, Ma titein lo. What are you going to give to the Almighty? He's quite infinitely fine. There's nothing that you can get. You're going to give him a cup of coffee. You're going to give him there's nothing. There's not. So if you're not serving him for his benefit, because he's perfectly infinite, whose benefit are you serving him for? You know who? For ours. The whole of the Torah is allowing the Almighty to give to us. That's what the Torah is, and we have to get that into our bones, right? But that's something that you can share with him, right? And that's why Hashem put Adam in the Garden of Eden, because Eden is a place of pleasure. That's what the whole point of this existence is. That Hashem wants to give us tremendous pleasure, give an instruction manual for how to get the most pleasure out of life. That's it. Now, so this is the second point, that we have to understand that it's not taking away his pleasure, and you can share that with him. But that's good. It might go into his head. But you want him to feel it emotionally. Okay, now he understands. That could be life-changing for him to understand that. He never understood that Torah was about that. But what is it that how can you get into his bones, into his emotions, that there's some pleasure in this Judaism thing? How would you do that?
Be happy with
What's that?
yourself. Be happy.
Okay, that's the most, what you're saying is the most basic. Meaning if you're walking around miserable, right, he's going to say, I don't know if I want this, right? But if you exude a joy of life, and that takes, look, we've all got our nisyonos and our challenges, right? So, we're not perfect. But if we're trying to do avodas Hashem correctly, and we're samech b'chelko, so then, so then they'll see that you have, they feel that, right? Yeah? I'll just bring this out a little bit more. Every single person, right, has a need for meaning in life, right? So you ask somebody, are you happy? They'll say yes, right? Sure. Why? Because it's sort of, but you understand that there's a little bit of a game going on here, because for me to say I'm not happy goes back to what you said before, which is if I admit that I'm not happy, then maybe I have to change something. And I'm not prepared to do that. So of course I'm happy, because because admitting that you're not happy means maybe I should change. I'm not ready to do that. No, right, so fine. So how do we get to that? Every single person, but the reality is every single human being has a need to feel a sense of meaning in life. And if I don't have it, it irks them, right? It irks them, right? They may not admit it. There's two things that we do. We either distract ourselves and start playing a lot of games and watching television, and that's what, right? Or we get involved in, become a workaholic, or start kind of replacement of meaning of some other sort. But to just sit with the feeling, if you're a yid, right? All the more so. If you're a yid, you feel it. I once asked, I had the great schus of writing questions for Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal when he came to Eish Torah, and he used to answer questions. And I wrote the following question, and his answer blew me away. And you'll hear in a second, it blew other people away. But I asked the question, why should an intelligent person who's enjoying life choose to become an Orthodox Jew? That was the question. He came in, he'd not seen the question before. He read the question, and he said, the question reads the following. And then he said, the question is mistaken. I'm thinking, the question is mistaken. How can you say question is mistaken? He said, the question should read, why should an intelligent person who's under the delusion that is enjoying life choose to become an Orthodox Jew? And then he spent 20 minutes discussing why everybody has a deep need for meaning, and if you're not satisfied, there's that so what? What am I doing with my life? I know I'm in this world to do something, and I don't feel I'm doing it, and that's why people go through mid-age crisis, because they get to 50 years old, and they think, well, so what? So what? I worked my way up the corporate ladder, or maybe I didn't, but what do I really have? And then I've got another 50 years, and I know what's going to be different. Everybody has this. I'll just tell you a very quick anecdote, because it's such a gorgeous anecdote. My mother, Aleh Shalom, was a very big into Achnas Suchen, and we used to have people at our house. Everybody used to come, and she was Tzedekah. She was a Tzedekah, and then she used to become everybody's second mother. She was amazing. And there was the two guys that used to come. One of them, his name's David Lipkin. Now, if you know the name Lipkin, right, he's a direct descendant of Yisrael Salant. Right? The other guy was a direct descendant of the Ari. These two guys were not religious, and they made classical guitars together. Right? They're very, right? And they used to come to us. And my brother and I used to come back from yeshiva, and Chaim was who's the director of the Ari. He used to always have mystical ideas. I kid you not, but he would come and tell us about these mystical ideas. And David used to ask us kashas, how can this be, and why was this? And they were good kashas. Anyway, one day, he used to come. He came for years. I gave him this tape, David, right? This tape. Why should an intelligent person who's under the delusion, right, that choose? I saw him 2 weeks later, and I said, David, how was the tape? He couldn't answer. There was no words. I said, David, are you okay? The guy decided to become frum, right? He became frum. He married a frum girl. He's got frum kids, right? But this was the tape, because what happened was he was at the right time. He was ready to hear that. He heard it. This is me. I feel this way. And then the next 40 minutes of his speech was, how do we know that God gave the Torah? Here it is, right? And so it was done. It was a done deal. But I'm just saying that everybody has that. So that's good. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. How do we show somebody the pleasure of Torah? How do we show them the pleasure? How can you show us that Torah is pleasurable?
I mean, actually learn with them.
Okay, could be. Yeah, if you're learning, I hope so. I hope so. Yes, it could be. Yes.
Going back to a Shabbos experience.
Okay.
I'd like to go there, but I mean, like,
Yes, very good.
yes, and like the Shmaka time, whether it's
Yeah, right.
Hayam, some good food, some singing.
Exactly. You bring them to a Shabbos table, and they sit with you, and you bring out your best food. And okay, you don't have to be perfect either. No, that's always part of the cheshbon. Don't worry about that. Just don't pick a fight with your wife that weekend. Do that another time. But but you have to understand that we take these things so for granted. A person comes and they say, wow, fine food, and family sitting. What do you do? That you do this like it's like Thanksgiving, like just once a year? No, we do this every week, And like you're saying, you get a little schnapps and you tell, just enjoy yourself. All the principles that we said so far, be interested in them, care about them, and have a good time. You mentioned, Bernard mentioned that Rav Noach came. The last time he came, he spoke to I can't remember where it was in the girls' school, I think, and he spoke to a few hundred people came to hear him, and there was a question and answer at the end, right? And somebody asked him, like, if I have someone for Shabbos, should I try to, like, go through proofs and evidence with them? So in his inimicable way, he leaned over and looked at the guy in the eyes and said, tell me something. You want them to come back? Right? So it's meaning you have to understand there is a place, and we can get to it if we had more time, of proofs and everything. But in general, that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to give them an experience of the pleasure that you care and the pleasure of it. So Shabbos could be Shabbos, right? It could be Yantiv. It could be a Simcha, right? Take them. We knew when Baruch Hashem I was working in HUK, we used to take students to Israel, and we always knew on the 3-week trip, if you can get day 10 somebody to get married on that day, and you can take them to the wedding, and they're going to have the hats on fire, and everybody's going to be dancing around, and they've never seen anything like. At least all the girls will start becoming from. Oh wow, I want to have a wedding like that. Yeah. So, but there's something. It's powerful. Or the kosel, right? Experience of the kosel. How many people have I heard? And I know family members that weren't believers. They go to the kosel. There's something, the kedusha. There's a kedusha. Give people, they need an experience. So whether it's Shabbos experience, whether it's a Yantav experience, whether it's Simchas Beis HaShoeva, you can do something with Hanukkah, you can do something with Purim. Purim you have to be careful because it'd be Chillul Hashem, you want to make sure that it goes well, but if you do it right, it can be a great experience. It's just a little harder. But you want to give them the positive experiences and share the pleasure of Judaism with them. Now there's a part B of this, which is share insights into life that will show them that Judaism has the wisdom, right, that they need, that will help them get more pleasure out of life. Now, Rav Noach was maybe the expert on this, right? I know people heard his classic 5 levels of pleasure, that they're all pleasures. He got it from, he learned it out of the Sefer Chinuch, that all pleasures they're 5 levels, and when you understand that and you can share it, then that gives people. I was one zocher to sit on an aeroplane. I've done many airplanes where I sit down as no one from Passaic. I started telling them, did you know that Judaism has a definition of happiness? Oh wow! Would you? Yeah, you don't want to hear the definition of happiness, do you? It's going to be too. Actually, no, that sounds quite interesting. Oh, you do? Okay. So then you just explain them the definition of happiness. Now you have to know the definition of happiness, but this is Rav Noach had this. This was his 5 levels of pleasure. He goes through his 48 ways to wisdom. All of his stuff. It's just wisdom for living that we should all know, right? But it's in terms of helping be makar of people, because if you're going to get into what do you want to share with them? See, really, when you're trying to be makar of someone, you want to be, based on what we said, is you care about someone, right? So if you care about someone, you want to know what's going on in their life. Once you want to go in their life, is what area of their lives are they struggling with? Guess what? The Torah deals with it, because everything's in the Torah. So if a person's dating, you want to say to them, do you know that Judaism has a definition of love, right? Ayin Rav Noach Weinberg definition of love, right? Yeah. What's the definition? Oh, a person is feeling, lack of self, is feeling like he's going through a hard time because of what we said before. So you have to explain to him the whole idea of meaning and how does it work? What is it and what? Or all of these things. There's so many insight, comfort and pleasure. People are looking for comfort, but really they want pleasure. What's the difference? It's a mistake. The body and soul. All of these things we have to become ideally experts in. Good for us and good for them, right? So you always used to say that if you would say to someone, I'll offer you, $1 million for your eyes. What do you say? No. Any takers? $1 million? Any other ladies maybe? You need a little bit extra money for your eyes? I'll give you $1 million. No. 10 million, $1 million. No, it doesn't matter, Rabbi. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how much money you get. My eyes worth more to me than any money. Okay, fine. That's how I would come. You see, where's my? I don't know if you saw that I came in with this. But in here, I have wads of $100 bills, and the person that asks the best questions, I'm going to give them, it comes to about $1 million, right? So if I give you this million, you walk out with $1 million, how are you going to feel? You know how you're going to feel? You're going to feel like $1 million, right? You're going to feel like $1 million. You're going to do a jig down the street. So I say to you, but wait a second, you told me your eyes are worth more to you than any money, right? So how do you feel? You know how you feel? The same miserable person before you asked the question. But wait a second, but your eyes are worth more to you than any money, and if you took the money, you'd do a jig down. So what's going on? Something wrong here. You know what? You got used to your eyes, right? That's the problem with us, yeah? We got used to our eyes. All of Judaism and all of life is about not taking for granted the gifts that we were given, right? And that's why in Judaism we say 100 blessings a day. So you exercise that muscle to appreciate what you have. If you can get used to your eyes, you get used to the new wife, the new car, the new baby, the new thing. You take it all for granted. A person who could see for the first time, a person who's blind and can see, is ecstatic. Ecstatic, because they appreciate. We just had it a bit longer and got used to it. So if you appreciate, every human being is a billionaire, even if they don't have a penny to their names. We just have to appreciate what we have, right? We're walking around, that's it. We have to realize that. So if you share that this is classic, this is Rav Noach Weinberg definition of happiness 101. Happiness is the pleasure you feel when you appreciate what you have. If you want to be miserable, focus on everything you don't have and appreciate that, right? So when you in terms of giving people a feeling of pleasure and getting it, first we said is that understanding that Torah is an instruction manual for living, and therefore that changes their perspective of what Judaism is about. But if you can give them insights, if you give them the experiences, Shabbos, and also these are two channels of how to show them pleasure. We've got a few minutes left. I want to get on to the third misconception. The third misconception is that people think that Judaism is all or nothing. Right? I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm either going to do the whole thing or I'm not going to do anything. And that means, essentially, that I'm not going to do anything. Because if there's one thing that I'm not prepared to do, right, so then I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Right? Now, it's a rationalization of me why I don't have to do anything. But so what do you say to a person who says like, I'm not going to go, I don't do things in half stages, and I can't. So you say like this, that really Judaism, there's no person in the world, who can say, you know what, Hashem, I've done everything, I'm the biggest rabbi, I finished everything you did, now I'm going to go and play tiddlywinks. I'm done, right? No. Every human being, there's things that he or she is doing, and there's things that he or she is struggling with, right? There's, and that's like Rav Dessler explains, there's a Bechira point, that everybody says certain things that they're on different stages of the ladder, and it's the direction that you're going, right? So therefore, it's the fact that you're not going to able to do everything just means that you are human. Don't let that be a reason for you not to keep the Torah, right? Yeah. So therefore, and that's a corollary idea to what we said before, is if we understand that all of the Torah is just the Almighty giving to you, right? Then you understand that whatever mitzvah that you do, you're rich. It's any mitzvah is worth millions. It's worth anything. Just take one mitzvah. If one person, you see a person puts on tefillin, right, for the first time. Wow, that's amazing. A person keeps the laws of Lashon Hara. Wow, that's amazing. So and we have to understand that growth is not all or nothing. And it's usually very unhealthy if it is all or nothing. And usually the people who try to keep everything at once are the ones who next day will do nothing and go the other way. Health growth is 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Just like if a person has a child and the child takes his first step and you're so, oh wow, look at that little baby, he took that step, amazing. And then he falls over and you go, whack, how could you do that? You didn't, you took a first step, you should be doing it all the time now. No, that's not life. Life isn't that way. So each thing you have to appreciate. So if I said to you guys, you know what, forget about that whole thing about the $1 million. That's not true. But I do have 613 diamonds in my pocket, and I'm going to put them over here, and I'm going to ask all of you, you can come and get them, and I'll give you 30 seconds. So you go home to your wife or your husband and you say, you know what, that rabbi was amazing. He put 630 most precious diamonds and he offered them to us to come and get them. So your husband says, well, so did you go get them? She says, no, I'm not stupid. I knew I couldn't get them all. So because I couldn't get them all, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and I'm not going to take it. I'm going to take it either. So you mean you could have got 1 or 2 or 3? We'd be multi-millionaires, Every mitzvah, we have to understand, is a precious jewel, right? And therefore, anything that anyone does is beautiful. And it's so we have to understand that when we're helping someone to become religious, it's not all or nothing. So what you need to focus on, what's the next step for this person? What is it that they could do next that's for them? And that takes a little bit of judgment. Now, first of all, you need to know what are easy mitzvahs, that if they're ready for mitzvahs, they might not be ready for mitzvahs, they are ready for mitzvahs. What are some easy mitzvahs? So we're just going to mention a few because we're running out of time. But just to say, it might be, you give them a mezuzah, and you put them a mezuzah on their thing, and that's a very nice thing, and it looks pretty, and it's a kind of a gift as well, right? Or it might be lighting candles, try to do before Shkia, usually a good idea. But, that's another thing which people could do. Or say the Shema. It's not all or nothing. I'll just bring this point out. I've been learning, I need to get together with them for a while again, but I was learning with a few guys in Manhattan. They were very steeped in secular society. Right? I had to keep reminding them I'm a rabbi. Right? So please, let's move on to the next conversation. But these guys, I learned with them, and I felt like, I really, it's hard work. Anyway, one day, one of the guys comes to me and he says, Rabbi, I know you think you're not getting anywhere with us, but he goes, you know what? I don't come into the office on Saturdays anymore. He says, and not only that, he went like this. He says, I don't shave over here anymore, right? And he says, not only that, I say the first line of the Shema at night. I said, and not only that, I've started saying brachas on food. Now it happened to be he was saying hamotzi on everything, but you've got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. So I'm just saying it's not all, and that's been. Now imagine I said to him, yeah, but you're not keeping Shabbos, so you're chayav skila. So what good is that to you? Is that a good technique for? But no, you have to understand. We had one of the people that came to my mother's house, David Goldman. He used to come, and every year on Rosh Hashanah he'd say, he said, Chaim, I want to do one thing. So he started off. He would put on tefillin twice a week. And then he started going to Shabbos, to work on Shabbos. Then he started to, slowly, Baruch Hashem became a full Shomer Shabbos. Slowly, one step at a time, he did it. And now we have to understand, it's one step at a time. Now it has to be that a person's ready for that, right? Because they might not be ready for your mitzvahs, even one step at a time yet. So you have to so really what we have to do is we have to evaluate, and this is really what Kiruv professionals, this is what their expertise, their training, and this is helps them do, but it's what we can all do, is you have to size up a person. Where are they in life? What do they need? What is going on? What's a next step for them so that they can get involved in Yiddishkeit? Maybe there's student, oh, you know what? Have you ever been to Israel? Oh, no, never been to Israel. You know what? What do students want? They want great experiences and money, right? Oh, I can get you a scholarship for that, right? So that might be a good idea for someone who's never, it's great. You've got to go to Israel. If you've never been to Israel, you've got to see it. It's amazing, or whatever. You have to look to see, what, maybe to start with, if they would come for you for Friday, for a meal on Shabbos or something like that, that might be a good next step. Or it might be just that to start with. You know what? They're not really ready for any mitzvahs yet. But it's just the relationship, like we started off saying. So that's really what we have to do, right? We have to develop a relationship. It's all in the relationship. Can't emphasize that enough. It's all about caring. If you care enough to keep in touch, right, with people, having people on your radar is the key to Kiruv. If they're not on your radar, I can give you all the great techniques, but you'll say, well, I just don't know anybody, like that lady did. But you know what? If I paid you $1 million, you would come back with many people. You should take a day after Havdalah or after the Sunday morning. What can I do this week? Who can I reach out to? Because we have a acharayas to try to reach out to people, and that includes our family. With family, you have to be very careful, right? That you're not, if you're too pushy, then it will backfire, right? You have to, but if you're sensitive and you care, and you're in their lives, you'll see the opportunities. They might even come over to you, and say, you know what, and I'd like to do something, but learn. Maybe they'll learn with you for 10 minutes a week. Something. What will you learn? Something that will be of interest to them. Pirkei Avos, 48 Ways to Wisdom. Something, you could send people a little wisdom on, I saw this interesting article, I saw this article on h.com, I thought you might like it. You send it to them, let me know what you think. Or I had an idea. You have wisdom for living. I wanted to share this with you. I used to tell people, I'm doing a training course to share ideas. Do you mind listening to me and give me evaluation what you think? So I tell them the definition of love, the definition of happiness, and they would hear it. And so they would, then they would give me all the feedback of how terribly badly I gave it over. But okay. But so I'm just saying, so these are all mahalchim. We didn't get to the fourth, because I'm supposed to start and finish at 9. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take, but I don't want to go over time. So, if you have any, I don't know, should I take some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions? Yes.
What is the fourth?
That's for next time. Yeah. Right.
Repeat the question.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You mentioned that 90% of our brethren are intermarried.
No. 90% of our brethren are not connected to Torah in meaningful ways. Meaning they might be married to a Jew, but they don't necessarily have any
There's
connection.
A very high rate of intermarriage.
75%. Yes.
So the rules that you say apply to somebody who's
That's great. It's in here.
they have a partner.
You didn't have the time, you see, but it's in here, right? Every Jew, right, they're married, intermarried or not, and realize that 3 out of 4 are intermarried. They're as Jewish as you and I, right? So we have to understand that, look, especially if it's the mother who married out, so then her children are going to be Jewish as well. So you're dealing not just with her, but also with the children. So you've got to be makar of these people, right? So the best way, don't try to break up a man into marriage. Don't try that. You'll be out, right? It just doesn't go. It just doesn't go. So, and often it's the opposite. If you're very nice to the non-Jewish partner, they'll think, oh, isn't this beautiful? I love it. And then maybe the Jewish person will actually say, oh, well, maybe there's something here. It only works by being nice to both and caring about those. And you do, and the rest of Be'ikah, there are questions, but the Be'ikah, it's exactly the same technique. This guy is Jewish. Anything that he does, it's not all or nothing, whatever he does. And I know many people who are intermarried who've every mitzvah they do is a mitzvah, right? So you try, If your goal is to try to get someone Shomer Shabbos, right, you'll fail, right? Your goal is to help them grow. If you look at Kiruv being, I'm going to make this person Shomer Shabbos, you'll give up because you'll be messiahish. It's like it takes time. And sometimes we get siyata b'shmai. We say, it says Yagati v'lo matzati al ta'amin. If I put in effort and I didn't succeed, it says Chazal, meaning if you put in enough effort, you'll see peros. It may not be always with this person, but if you keep trying to, in caring ways and sensitive ways, you'll see some good come out of it. But that's with anyone. This person is unfortunate. They're, by and large, teenage nishbu. They don't know any better, and they don't know. So try to bring them along as much as you can. Now sometimes you have to know with your children. Let's say you have a Shabbos table, you've got to explain it to them. But it's better to explain it to them in a context of where you're in control, right, and you're showing them the beauty, we have a responsibility to show the beauty, and they don't know any better and everything, then they go out and say, oh, maybe it's okay to marry non-Jewish people. It's like, it's always better in the home setting to bring these ideas up, and that we know what we're doing. We're the ones who have what they really need and want, rather than to go out and maybe that's a good idea. Oh, yes.
Okay, I have 3 questions.
3, wow. Okay.
So I have a partner in Torah. She lives in New Orleans, and she's not religious, but she's with anything. It goes through your initiative for October 7th. So I've been learning with her for a long time now, but I don't know how to introduce. My whole idea is just to connect and to go through Parshio now, or I started with Rashid this year around. I don't know, any ideas, or it's not even my goal. My goal is just to teach her about Judaism.
Okay.
I don't even have a goal to
So you know what? You remind me of I heard Rav Yaakov Weinberg told me once, he asked Rav Aaron Kotler a question on a shir that he gave. And you know what Rav Aaron Kotler did? He started the shir from the beginning. He said the same thing word for word, right, to answer his question, right? So why am I reminded of that? Because what we try to explain here is that when you have someone, your goal should be the first thing is develop a relationship with them, right? Second thing is, if you've decided I just want to learn with them, right? I'm not saying there's not a mitzvah involved in that, but your responsibility is to see how could I try to help them move along in some way at some point. That should be part of your goal. Now, in order to achieve that goal, you're in a good position because you're meeting with them every week and you have Torah, right? And learning the Parsha is a great thing to learn, right? Because that has a lot of good stuff. But you got to at some point deal with how do you feel about this in a way that's not threatening to them, right? How do you feel about why did you start doing this? That's a very good question. You did it from October 7th. What was it that you started? Oh wow, because you wanted to express so you want to learn. That's amazing. You have to sort of at some point get to is there something that you'd like to do? Prayer. Do you ever want to pray? If she believes in God, does she believe in God? But you need to find out these things, and the difficulty is doing it in a way that's sensitive and is not pushy and is But you can do it. It's very. I mean, in those kind of relationships, there usually comes up. Oh, do you ever? Maybe we could learn to. Or even when it comes up in Parsha Shavua, these things come up. So, oh, did you ever think of doing this? Or maybe we should learn about prayer. It comes up. Oh, Vayes Chanan, right? El Hashem. He paid. Do you ever? I don't know. Do you do this? You ever? I never asked you that. Silly me. I put the blame on you. So you do have to. I know people who've asked me this question. I've been learning Nach with someone for the last 20 years. I said, well, what do they believe? I don't know. I never asked them. You gotta try. So that's your first question. We'll take somebody else's question before your second question. But I don't know if I'm. Yeah, we could speak more about it if you like. But yeah, go ahead.
Just a suggestion. Like everyone's emphasizing Parsha and Torah, and that's really important. Why don't you try to start with Tehillim? Tehillim is so universal because people know. For example, even the most secular people know. Even the Goyim know. The law is my shepherd, I shall not want. You translate into that. There are different Tehillim for different things. For Matzah and life. Israelis were Chiloni after during October 7th, after October 7th, those stories are taken on one particular, Tehillim there. And one thing led to another. Tehillim is not that threatening. It's a little more universal. And so if you're feeling you're not reaching them during prayer, or try intermixing that. It's just a suggestion.
Listen, you sound you're very passionate about it, and it'd probably be good for you that you feel it. So when you feel something strongly, it's often a good thing to do. It could be, it could be that some people do relate to that. I don't know if most people. Yeah, Lord is my shepherd is a very well-known one, but I'm not sure how well-known the other ones are to most people out there today. But it's still, if you connect to it, there are many. There's not one size fits all. There are many different approaches. I do normally Chumash and Parsha. I recommend to people commonly, or to pray. you can, you have to. What is prayer about? There are beautiful books about prayer. You just, even to get someone to pray in English. That's one of the easy mitzvahs. To pray in English to every night before you go to sleep and say, God, creator of the universe, please help me with this, this, and this. Thank you. You fulfill the mitzvah from the Torah of prayer. Now, so that's a beautiful thing to do. So I'm just saying that. Listen, each person you have to know, and you have to be like. I'm not a big believer in take one thing for everyone, right? I don't think that. I think usually, what's that? No, I'm saying it might be good, very good for certain people, like certain Israelis and so forth. It might be great, but you have to think with this particular person. What do you think would be the best thing for them?
The person has somebody in the hospital, medical illness or surgery. That might be an extra piece of, to give them, like to help them along, when they're so.
Yes, you can do. You can. Yes, right. It could be, but all the point that I'm making, is it could be, and if they relate to it, and if there's Israeli like you said, and they, but it could be if they don't know how to read Hebrew and they don't know what it is, you're better off saying, you know what? Do you believe in, I'll pray for you, and you know what? Hashem will also respond to your prayers if you pray, and then and if you explain to someone what prayer is and how that can make a difference, then that could help them in a way that they will relate to. It could be your idea is great. I'm not trying to take it away from you there, but I'm just saying that you just got to be able to evaluate each person individually whether this will work for them or not. But I do think it's true when people are in the situation in Eretz Yisrael. It's a great way in to get people to do something because everybody feels something. The simplest way is pray. When you pray, I'm going to give you the name of a person, a soldier in Israel. Will you pray for this person every day? We're under, and they'll do that. I mean, most people will do that. So could you say, well, would you say this to Hillel? Maybe. I don't know if I'm just careful about if they're going to really connect to it. But if you feel that you know people that will, then great. Yes, next.
Can I ask?
Yes. Okay, go.
Those are very good ideas. So it happened twice that I invited coworkers over to my house, one for Purim and one for Sukkot. And by conversation, it turned out that they were Miskayer, but not through an Orthodox conversion.
Right.
So right now, I work with somebody, and they converted, but not through Orthodox. We talked about it, but he's very interested. So where does that put me?
Right. And he's married?
Can you repeat the questions?
No, if someone is converted, but they converted with a non-Orthodox conversion, where does that put me in my relationship with them? Look, the simplest understanding is just that simplest is most probably they're not Jewish, right? The Rav David Cohen paskin that a conservative conversion is considered Suffolk, which makes it very much more complicated. But I'm not sure if he's, even today. I don't know. I don't know if that's a mainstream. I don't know if that everybody agrees with that. But he did say that to me one time, which I was surprised to hear. But that's what he felt. But so I guess it's a little bit conditional on that. But the bottom, I would say, that overall, if we have in our list of priorities somebody who had a conversion that was not Orthodox, is most probably not Jewish and not to the time and effort it's going to take to get them, unless if they express incredible interest and they really want to become but it's complicated because you're sort of invalidating their Jewishness if you're going to start getting into you really should have we don't have an obligation if they're not Jewish to make them Jewish, right? So I wouldn't personally put a tremendous amount of time and effort into trying to help that person become more observant and Jewishly aware because of that. Yeah.
So what happens if you invite somebody to your Shabbos table? You thought you knew them, and it turns out the mother wasn't halakhically desired, So do you busha to
Don't kick them out in the middle of the meal. Don't kick them out in the middle of the meal.
Do you keep on buying them back?
No, I wouldn't. Listen, you've got to. everything, you have to be, sensitive, There's nothing wrong with inviting someone to you if they're not Jewish on Shabbos, right? But, I just wouldn't put it as a priority anymore. But you're right, there's a sensitivity that if they're going to feel like, oh, you dumped them because they know that they told you that they're mothers, and you went and your face dropped when they told you, and so you can't get, you understand what I'm saying? You can't make, that's called midos tovos, right? I would not invite them, no. I would not invite somebody who's not Jewish. Personally, I wouldn't. But unless I feel it's going to be a chilul Hashem. It's going to be a chilul Hashem. I'm going to create a chilul Hashem. So then maybe I'll invite them down the line, and then it'll get less frequent, But, unless they're very close friends, they want to come, you don't mind, that's your business, But in terms of, your obligation in terms of Kiruv, there isn't, really, And that's why I asked before, is one of the spouses Jewish? If there is, then you have to be trying to be Makarev anyway.
Why is that different than somebody who is interested in becoming a ger? Somebody's interested in converting.
Yeah,
so
but
would you go and help the person? So if this person had not a valid conversion, and they're obviously coming to you because they're interested.
They didn't have a valid conversion.
They did not have a valid conversion, but that's only because of the lack of knowledge. So it's not because they're not interested. So why are they different than somebody who is interested in becoming a convert?
Well, the question is, maybe this person not interested in becoming a convert. This person is quite satisfied with his or her conversion the way he or she is. If you see that the person really cares and wants to go to the next step, that is different. So then, listen, that, even for a person who wants to convert you, there's a certain amount of discouragement and so forth. But that's only to make sure that they're sincere, right? Once they converted, so there's an extra mitzvah to love them more than a yid. That's one of the Tariq mitzvahs to love, because he was nichnas tachas kanfei hashchina. It's an incredible thing. A person becomes a ger, giores. It's an amazing thing. It's wow, look what they did, But so that if they're really saying I want to become more involved at some point, yes, and maybe in that circumstance you could have them back, but you try to direct them to the right people. But my experience from this, we have a lot of this because we have a lot of people learning one-on-one. We have this question all the time, right? So we generally find out if a person wants to learn, unless it's exceptional reasons, which there's sometimes a person is so into it and they're really going in the right. They're not on a Gerus program, but they really But usually, we find that if they're not, if it's not an Orthodox conversion, we don't. We've got enough to handle with 90% of the Jewish people that are Jewish that we have to try to deal with, than somebody who knows whether they're going to really make it or they're not going to really make it. It's a lesser responsibility. Yeah.
People have such ingrained beliefs, like, oh, Judaism is chauvinistic or this type of thing, and you explaining to them, actually, whatever, it's not, they already have their thought process from their whole life.
It's in here. It's all in here. They only gave me an hour and a half, But you're right. You have to be. So there's two parts to that. One is what we said at the start, which is the non-judgmentalism, that they feel Judaism is judgmental, right? That you're looking down on me. They're looking for it. They're looking to try it because they want to, in a certain way, if they can show that Judaism is really, there's something wrong with it, and I can stay away from it. So you have to be the most accepting, caring, good friend that shows them that you are, you don't represent that. You represent the opposite. That's number one. But then you have to also understand how to explain that, Judaism concept of, women's role, which we didn't get to, right? But it's very simple that, to understand that, Judaism says that women are on a, really, you have, Rav Noach always used to say that, if you have the goals of Judaism, the Sheish Mitzvahs to me, the 6 commandments are the same for men and women, right? So, and Rav Yaakov Weinberg used to say that an Eza Kenegdo was, as a woman, they're opposite, they're Keneged, they're facing each other, they're equal and they're opposite. It's an equal opposite relation. So they say in the name of Rav Shimshon Raphael Herz, who's really famous for saying that the fact that women have less mitzvahs means that they are on a higher level, right? Because so the mashal that they often give is that if you take a person to a trainer, and the trainer says to this person, you need to do 100 press-ups every day, and this person said, you need to do 10. So who's in better shape, right? The one who doesn't need so much. The one who needs to do more exercise is in a worse shape. The one who needs less. So therefore, a woman doesn't need to have as many mitzvahs as men do to get to the same point. And that is what's the word? Embellished is a better word. By the fact that, for example, the Zohar says that a woman's tefillin are in her body, so therefore she doesn't need it. We understand if you learn Tzitzis that the men were the ones who were involved in the chet of the Meraglim, and they went Lasures Haaretz. They went to how do you translate that? Lasures to spy out and because they were over on Lo Sasuru, so now they need tzitzis so that they shouldn't. Men needed it. Women weren't involved in that, so they don't need the mitzvah of tzitzis. So they don't need it. So you see that there are many mitzvahs that women don't need. They don't need to have the minyan the way men. Women are more connected. They don't need to keep up the way men do. Men have got. So I always say that men. In the mitzvah of Lo Sasuru Achrei Levavchem Achrei Nechem, which is one of the 6 constant mitzvahs, it's Levavchem v'Einechem. So Einechem and Zuznus. This is considered like taiva, right? Levavchem is considered minus. Minus, which means heresy. Heresy is from Gaiva. This place is in the big enough for me and God. So it's ego and taiva, right? So let's just think about it. Who has a bigger ego, men or women? There's a male ego or female? Male ego. Watch out for male ego, right? So men have a bit of a more. Women, tithe as an end in itself. Who has a bigger problem with that? Men or women? Come on, guys. We know, who's more likely to make, we know men have a much bigger problem with that. So you see that men have bigger issues. They need more mitzvahs to get over their issues. That's the reality. Now we're happy that we have more mitzvahs, so we're very happy about that, But women, they don't have as many mitzvahs, but they kashan sani kirtsono, maybe in accordance with the will of the Creator of the universe. So you can share, and you see that, and this is throughout the Torah that the Moshe got it wrong, and the Bnos Slavchad got it right, and Amram got it wrong, and Miriam got it right, and Yaakov didn't understand. Yitzhak didn't understand what Rivka understood about Esau. I mean, it's all over the place. The women were not involved in the Chameraglim. The women were not involved in the Egel Azav. They weren't. So it's like you see, like Judaism is basically saying women are like tzaddikas. In the schus of Nashim Tzidkanias, we were taken out of Mitzrayim. In the schus of Nashim, we're gonna be the final Geula. So listen, it's obvious. It's obvious. There are more emotionally and spiritually mature. And we got a lot of work to do. So when you explain that to people, it helps. But we have to understand it ourselves. But okay, but yes, you're right. We have to. Yeah. Yes.
I have 2 questions, but I'm only going to ask one this time.
Okay.
Just to follow up on the question.
Didn't stop the women asking a lot of questions, but okay, go on. You're a man. I remember. Yeah, man.
If somebody is in front of you and either their gerus wasn't a good gerus,
yeah,
or if they think that they're Jewish, but it's only their father that they're not actually Jewish, how do you deal with that? Do you tell them and the ramifications of that?
Yes. You. That's the two. There are 2 questions. So you got 2 questions in because those are 2 separate questions. Yeah. So if someone has a gerus and it's not a good gerus and they think they're Jewish, you have a responsibility to tell them. Yes. Yeah, it's a very sensitive. We had lots of people in our programs where that was the case, and you have the responsibility to let them know. Sure. To let them know that that is technically speaking, you have to be. They're not technically Jewish because of this, but that you can help. You can help them and so on and so forth. But you do have to let them know because otherwise they're going to go through life thinking they're Jewish, and that's not good.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of somebody who's has a Jewish father, so Rav Elyashiv paskins that a person who has a Jewish father you are allowed to encourage and help them become a ger more than a regular person because they have some kind of Jewish, I forget what the expression that was used, but it's a connection is a good word. Okay, thank you. That'll do.
Whoever wants, but everyone wants to stay for questions, they're welcome to stay for questions, or anyone who wants to go and down the line. We're going to thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.